God's Word, and thank you for coming for Sunday school. I'm still trying to teach on the churches, or at least the church landscape, whatever they had to deal with during the first century. So, but we'll ask God to bless it first and pray for. There's a lot. Sister Faye and Brother Johnny, Sister Becky, the ones who are going camping, the ones who are at camp meeting, the rest of the camp meeting that's going on through next week. Well, the week after. So a lot of camp meetings going on. Anything else we need to pray about that I didn't mention?
Needs to get her heart cath done.
Yeah, Sister Glenda.
Condition unit in Robert Helton. We found out that he got cancer. I mean, bad shape. He ain't very old. He's not an old man. So I said, it's bad. Whole sides, I think is eat up in there, So he's in terrible shape. Just remember him in prayer.
And another thing, he's got the bad infection. They seem to get rid of MRSA or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So, and now we know that he's on a life support, so I don't know. Remember him and pray his family.
Anything else you need to pray about? It's not too early to start praying for VBS too. That's next month, ain't it? And hopefully get some young kids out here that don't usually go to church. We can reach out to them. That's where I got my start in the early 80s. Was that early 80s? It's a long time ago. Oh, it's 79 or 80. Long time ago. So it is effective, if it's done. I'm thankful that they didn't follow up. That Sister Clark followed up, because I would not be here. I would probably been over there, because they planted a seed, but they never picked it. They never picked it. They never reaped it. So I'm thankful that God sent Sister Clark and Sister Becky. Anything else? Yeah. Pray for my shoulder. I don't know if I've tore something or what. It hurts really bad. And it's part of getting older, I guess. But it's hard to work. It's hard to. I can't hardly even close my door in my car sometimes. Turn the headlights on. It hurts to do anything with. So just pray for that. Nothing else. Brother Jake, you want to lead us?
Lord, thank you for this day. Lord, you see these prayer requests go now, Lord. Just pray for them, Lord. Pray for certain individuals, Lord. Just thank you for all you do. Give us good service today, Lord. Good understanding. Just thank you for all you do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Okay. So we started a few weeks ago about the Revelation chart. We all know the chart, I hope. Different churches that God sent a letter to. But I started a series on what was because it's not just symbolic. It is symbolic, but those churches were real. They had real people with real problems, and what the church dealt with in those local congregations can be a learning tool and also a warning to us in this latter days, So we talked about Ephesus being a port city, a very, very, it's like a metropolis on the Greek, was it Aegean Sea? And it was a port city full of paganism. Well, the next one was Smyrna. It was just a little bit north of that, same situation. It's also a port city. And most of the time when you had port cities, you had a lot of different cultures coming together. That's where commerce came together. So there was a lot of diversity of people, and with diversity of people came diversity of gods, and that was the problem. The first few centuries, paganism was really, really bad. But you know what? It's bad today, but it's guised in different names now. A lot of it is under the name of Christian. A lot of things that say they're Christian is not Christian at all. So the devil had to change his clothes. He had to hide in different ways, but now he's in religion, in Christian religion. The third church that we come to, remember, these are all literal cities with literal churches, and it was written by John from Jesus to these people. They had problems in these churches. Anytime you have people, Brother Jake, you'll have problems. because people break problems. There's no perfect congregation. There's no perfect place. Anywhere people's at comes problem. But they had a lot of issues with paganism. They really faced a lot of that. And a lot of it is due to the reason I've shown you where they came from is most of these cities came from ancient times when you had the Greek Empire and the Roman Empire and the Medo-Persian Empire. These cities, every time a new kingdom would take over, would bring in new gods. And they wouldn't take one old god out and put a new god in. They just added another one and added another one. Before long, you got gods and gods, just a bunch of different gods. So you can pretty much worship what you wanted to. And that's where we're at today in a place called Pergamum. Pergamum, I'm going to read some dry history, okay, about the city. And I'm hoping to give you a picture of what the time was like, of what they had to face. And I'm going to try to bring it over to what we have to face too. So with that being said, Pergamum was an ancient Greek city in Mysia. So right there it tells you a whole lot about it. Anytime you hear the word Greek, you know there's paganism involved. Because that's where you get the Greek gods, you know, Zeus and Thor and all these gods, these Greek gods. They were deep roots of paganism in Greece. So this city was a Greek city. This one is different than Smyrna and Ephesus because it was not a port city. This one was 16 miles away from the sea, from the Aegean Sea, and it's up on top of a hill. It's on a lofty, isolated hill on the northern side of the broad valley of Cassius, which is the modern-day Makir. Notice a lot of these cities too are still around today. America is 248 years old. That seems like a long time, but when you think about these cities, they're 3,000 and 4,000 and 5,000 years old. I mean, they've been around a long time. A lot of history, a lot of culture, and culture is hard to change, Brother Tony. It's hard to change people's culture. You got to have an internal change most of the time before you ever change your culture. So with them being around this stuff, to them, it's been thousands of years in paganism, so to them, it's just nothing else. They do it because grandma did it, because grandma's grandma did it, and stuff like that. So, in other words, to change that, you got to change them to change their situation. Same with us. If it wasn't for Jesus, I wouldn't be who I am right now, because I was I don't want to talk about who I was. I'm thankful that I'm not him anymore. So Pergamum is an ancient city in Greece, 16 miles away from the Aegean Sea. All these churches that we read about in Revelation, there's a lot more churches than this, a lot more congregations. But these were all on a certain mail route. So that if the guy was bringing the mail, he would hit all these cities in succession. The next one would have been in Pergamum, 16 miles away from the sea. It says the site is today is the modern town of Pergamum in the Il province of Izmir, Turkey. So far, all three cities that we read about, Ephesus, Smyrna, and Pergamum, they're all in Turkey today, modern-day Turkey. What's in Turkey today? Tons and tons and tons of Muslims. This place is still steeped. I mean, these cities have so much against them already. Paganism, and then now the infestation of what I think is one of the worst, that's the Muslim, because they are a man-ruled, hateful, mean, they'll kill you for no reason kind of religion. At least, and I'm not saying paganism is good, at least those who worship Zeus didn't kill you because you didn't like Zeus. But if you don't like Allah, they'll kill you over that. So this town that we read about, you know, we've always used it as just a symbolic picture in the third seal, which we'll get into that too. This place is still around today under a lot of oppression. Pergamum existed at least from about the 5th century BC. So that would put it back in the Grecian kingdom during the times of Alexander the Great. But it only became an important city during the Hellenistic age. And I'll get into that Hellenistic age in just a little bit. But that's somewhere around 323 to 330 BC. When it served as a residence for the Attalid dynasty. So I'll get into that Attalid in just a minute. It's a different dynasty, different, because they had different rulers and come on, and they would have like the Ming dynasty and this dynasty, but this here is during the Attalid dynasty. They had a fortress and a palace that stood on the peak of a hill, while the town itself occupied the lower slopes. Now, if you know the third seal, what we're going to get into, the palace where the rulers lived is up on top, and the people are down at the bottom. You see, you don't talk about this book, Ken, where it's going. If you know the third seal, they already were used to some men higher than others, which the third seal is. Under the Roman Empire, because Rome conquered Greece, and they didn't conquer this city. They actually were given this city, and I'll tell you why in just a minute, but they were given this city, and they made the city a little bit lower. Pergamum today is in Pergamum, Turkey, I told you. It used to have a formal autonomy under the Attalids. That means they could function by themselves. They have their own ruling body, they have their own city, their own society under the Attalids. Initially, they were ruled as vassals of the Seleucid kingdom. And if you've ever listened to Brother Ken preach the Revelation message, Seleucia is one of those he talked about. That's right, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. So it's all, the history line is just backing up what that message Brother Ken preaches about is in those Revelation revivals.
Know too that just because we say in Turkey is all Muslims, there's Muslims in Turkey that believes different things.
Oh yeah.
So there's Shiite Muslims, there's Sunni Muslims, there's two other different sects of Muslims, and they all fight with each other too. So it's important for us to know that they're not in unity over there at all.
Mm-mm.
So,
No.
as a matter of fact, before, and this is horrible, but before and during the Gulf War, Saddam Hussein actually dropped mustard gas on the Kurds. Mm-hmm. And they were part of his nation. It'd be like, the president now saying, well, I want you to drop biological agents on Texas. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
So they are still a form of paganism.
Oh yeah, exactly. And it's deeply ingrained. And it's what the point is, in order to get any help to them, you can't help them in their situation. You got to take them out. Now, they can live in that situation, but they got to be taken out in their heart. Without a heart change, they'll end up like their daddy and their granddaddy and all that. It's just a roundabout. It's always the same kind of scenario over there. You can't. No. They enjoy that. It's kind of weird because they become a martyr.
Yeah.
And they like that. They think that they did something good to die for it. So they need to die to self, not to a bullet. Oh no, that's fine.
Understand their form of paganism. If they die a martyr, a suicide bomber, then they're promised so many virgins when they get to heaven. They get they're promised so much gold. They're promised so much land. It's paganism.
Yeah.
It's pure paganism.
It is. It's no different than Zeus and Thor, right? It's just a different name. It's all wrong.
The way they believe.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So they were initially ruled during the Seleucid kingdom by Eunomus I. He declared himself independent of Antiochus in 263 BC. But when he died in 241, he was succeeded by his nephew Attalus. And that's where you get the title, the Attalids. So Attalus started the Attalid kingdom. He defeated the Galatians and assumed the royal title, and the dynasty received this name from him. So the original Attalid territory around Pergamus was greatly expanded by 188 BC with the addition of Lydia. They conquered Lydia. If you listen to the Revelation message, Lydia is mentioned there too. And part of Pangea, which is also on the Revelation chart. It all ties in. So history will back up what we teach in Revelation. We're not making that stuff up. It's not a figment of our imagination. It is all written down. This is from the Encyclopedia Britannica. This is a non-Church of God source. This is not me trying to back up our teaching. This is just a historical document. So when Eudemus' son and second successor Attalus III died without an heir, since he didn't have a child or a son, he bequeathed Pergamus to the kingdom of Rome. That's how Rome got the land and the kingdom. They didn't conquer it. They got it in a will because he died without an heir, so they gave him Pergamus to Rome. Rome accepted it and set up the province of Asia. It's not Asia we know of, it's Asia Minor. So Asia Minor is the new name under the Roman Empire for Pergamus, which is, it's been changed names several times. The kingdom of Pergamum yielded much wealth, especially in agriculture surpluses and silver, the first Attalid rulers and later to Rome. The Attalids made the city of Pergamum one of the most important and most beautiful of all the Greek cities in the Hellenistic age. It is one of the most outstanding examples of city planning in that period. They built a library that was only second to the one in Alexandria. So it was the second nicest library in the entire region, entire 2nd century, 3rd century, whatever it was, BC. The kings of Attalus first collected many works of art from Greece to adorn the city's temples. Notice it said temples, and it's not talking about a temple of God. This is all kinds of Zeus. They worshiped a lot of different kinds of gods. So they bought a bunch of art and their courtyards, supplementing the many works of sculpture, painting, and decoration commissioned from resident artists. In Roman time, the population was about 200,000 in Pergamum. Excavations that were begun in 1878 under the auspices of Berlin Museum, besides unearthing a lot of artistic treasures, enabled archaeologists to reconstruct the plan of the most important areas of the Hellenistic city. Its monuments, some of the things that they found when they dug it up, they found a theater. And theater was a big thing in those days, you know, not like the movie theater. It's like a theater where they came and did plays and did games and different things, and live entertainment. You know, entertainment has been a big deal, you know. It's still a big deal. And most time it's, entertainment can be a detriment to the Christian faith because world entertainment very rarely gives a true picture of Christianity, and it very rarely gives any good moral content. I'm not saying not ever, but it's usually just a good waste of time, or a bad waste of time if you look at it that way.
When those concepts come out and they're not biblically based, it puts different ideas in our mind. People watch it. All they got to do is see in the beginning based on a true story.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy to me how, you know, it's so much easier just to let somebody tell you how things are instead of trying to find that for yourself. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is because, I don't know, it's been several years back. There was a movie that was produced called Noah, but it was, you know, I've seen bits and pieces of it. Supposedly there were rock people who were there trying to destroy the ark, and I literally had people asking me questions, not in church, thank God. Were there really rock people during Noah's time? Like, I mean, seriously, you know? And, you know, I tried to tell them, you know, rocks are dead. They don't, you know, they're not people, you know? But because of that, it automatically, you know, you look at anything, like even go back as far as you can go back when Charlton Heston starred in the Ten Commandments. There's still bits and pieces about that are wrong.
Yeah.
And that will cause us to begin to think a certain way and think a certain pattern. Brother, if we want to know about God, we're going to have to get into His Word.
That's right.
We're going to have to pray, and we're going to have to let His Holy Spirit teach us, because that's what the Scripture says, that God's Spirit will teach us.
That's right.
Media has destroyed the work of God.
Oh, yeah.
And I just seen a thing recently where the Surgeon General is going to start requiring warning on certain media platforms for children. Like, you know how on a pack of cigarettes it says, you know, this can be harmful to your health? Now they're going to say TikTok could be harmful to children this age and under. I don't know what some of the other ones are.
Yeah.
But media is really, Paul said it. He said men, when he wrote to Timothy, he said men would be lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. He didn't say we couldn't have pleasure, but we can't love it more than we love God. And that's where a lot of people are at today.
Exactly. Yeah. So theater was a big thing. It's been around a long, long time. Nothing wrong with using like skits and stuff to teach and stuff, but it should never take the place of God's Word. But so when the Berlin Museum started unearthing this thing, they found the theater, they found the temple to Athena, Necropolis, the great altar of Zeus. Zeus was it's kind of funny, you know, they have a hard time believing in a Trinity, but they believed in so many multiple different kind of gods. Zeus was like the god of gods. He was the head honcho. He was the big god who had over everybody else. But they had in that city they found an altar to Zeus. Not surprising because it's in Turkey. It's right past the Aegean Sea, which is right near. It's a Greek-owned city, so you would think that there would be something to do with Zeus there. And they also found a masterpiece of Hellenistic art. Now I've mentioned that Hellenistic 4, 5, 6 times already. I'm gonna get into that in just a minute. A part of the altar and its surviving reliefs. And a relief is like what do you call it? Like a sculpture or it's a piece of art that tells a story. Restored and mounted, now stands in the Pergamum Museum in Berlin. So if you wanted to see some of this stuff from that time period, if you go to Berlin, you can find it in the Pergamum Museum. The civic structure of the lower city. Now, they had a palace, and the rulers were higher than the regular people. Sounds familiar, don't it? You think about D.C. and you think about us, you know, and you think about Third Seal, which was really getting at this. But so down in the civic part, down in the other part, in the lower city, included a large marketplace, like a large place to buy things, a gymnasium. They had a gymnasium and temples to Hera. Anybody ever heard of Hera? H-E-R-A, Hera? I never heard of Hera. They had a temple to Hera. She was a patron goddess of lawful marriage. She presides over weddings. She blesses and legalizes marital unions. And she protects women from harm during childbirth. So they had a God for everything. I like having a God for everything, not a different God for everything. I got a God who covers it all. I like that better. So they found temples in the lower city down there of Hera and of Demeter. I may be saying it wrong, but it's D-E-M-E-T-E-R, Demeter. He was an Olympian goddess, or she was an Olympian goddess of harvest and of agriculture, presiding over crops, grains, foods, and fertility. I would find that really hard to to remember if I was in a situation, which one to pray to. It's like, if I pray to her and she was the wrong one and she gets mad, I don't know, how would that work? I mean, you got to remember all these different goddesses and gods. And you got to pray to the right one for the right thing, you know. My crops are failing, so I got to go to Demeter. My daughter's getting married, so I need to go to Hera. I need to go to Zeus for this. Man, it's so much better to just go to God. You got one God and one mediator between me and God, and that's Jesus. I'm thankful for the simplicity of the gospel and not have to go through all this crazy rigmarole, especially of a God that I can carry around. You know, I can put Zeus in my pocket. That is so sad. But we think about it sad because we live in 21st century America in the Bible Belt. We didn't grow up under Greek rule. We didn't grow up under Roman rule. We didn't grow up under paganism like this. So the point I'm getting at, these people believe this stuff. This to them was thousands of years of history. And this is the kind of situation that Peter, Paul, James, and John had to face. They had to go into a city and tell them, y'all crazy. The gods that you're serving are dead. They don't work. You think about Paul when he went to Mars Hill. They had a statue to everything. God this, God that. And his one, for God we might have missed, the unknown God. I am thankful for that unknown God to them.
Brother President, you were saying about, those gods are dead, but some of the reading that I've had to do, like for school and whatnot, there's, I don't want to say a theory or whatever, but if those gods aren't worshipped enough, they're like supposed to have lost their power, all that kind of thing. Because basically that's what fed them. Like I said, that's what fed their ego. I don't know. But funny enough, or ironically, a week or two ago, there's a flood god for the Nile, for the Egyptians. He was found underwater. So I'm like, well, I guess they stopped praying to him. But it's just, but and I guess where I'm going is what you put your energy into is what's going to grow, if you will. So I think maybe some of that society had begun to lose faith or walk away from or whatever, and it lost its like its domineering effect on society per se, but the theory is, the gods couldn't survive if they didn't have someone making sacrifices and worshiping them all the time.
Yeah. Kind of sad, ain't it?
You know, Brother Preston, the Muslim world was polytheist at one time as well. And Muhammad is the one who actually worked towards trying to get them to be monotheist. And, if you go back and you study the history of the Muslim people, they are descendants from Persia, the Medo-Persian kingdom. Well, if you think about them being descendants from the Medo-Persian kingdom, the Medo-Persian kingdom was the biggest pagans there were, right? And so all of that history didn't get wiped out. A lot like what happened in Christianity whenever, the solstice was changed to Christmas and all those pagan customs were brought into Christianity. The same thing happened in the Muslim religion. They brought in a lot of pagan worship into their new system of worshiping one God. I'm telling you, we should be so thankful. We should be overwhelmed with gratitude to not, like you said, those people believe it. They're born into that. A young Muslim child born into a family in Iran or Turkey, and she's a little girl, she's going to be raised up under Sharia law.
Oh, yeah.
And she's going to believe every single bit of that, not believe anything different. I don't know. It actually grieves me a little bit. I feel grieved about it right now, just because their lives are horrible.
Yeah,
They're horrible lives. And now, you know, we've got these same people who believe these same things in a state in our country,
yeah.
trying to get our country to go that direction as well. You know, we better wake up. We just better really wake up. I mean, there's a move. It's a move just to get back to, yeah, I'm gonna hush.
Say something. Whenever they elect and get people in for the judges, for our country, whatever, they get people from different countries in with the judges, and they bring in their beliefs and stuff, and then throw it into the American society.
It's true. That's very, very true.
It's a silent takeover.
Yeah.
Well, and there was, I think some time ago, I was having a conversation with somebody about, what's his face? He had so many wives, and they were all of a different religion. What was it, King
Solomon?
Solomon? Was that him?
Solomon.
Yeah, Solomon had so many wives, but each one of them was from a different religion. It caused so much chaos. And that's not to be like, I'm anti this, anti that, but if your house, your country, whatever, is not on the same page, you're gonna have chaos.
Exactly.
And so you know, I've always kind of thought about that. I'm like, how, you can't make everyone happy. You cannot. And whoever is the loudest, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Exactly.
And that squeaky wheel may be like the most poisonous one.
It's true.
So it just, and I hate to say that we shouldn't tolerate so much. We should be accepting of others, but that doesn't mean we have to like fall in step with them.
Exactly. So the Romans inherited through a will because the guy had no heir. So they found things from the previous kingdom, and then the Romans they found an amphitheater. Now the Romans were big into sports. They loved sports. They had a theater and a racetrack that they found. The early accolades, now we're trying to show you what the disciples had to face in that period. Big in sports, that's what a big thing is for us. Sports is big, you know, theater and a racetrack. It sounds familiar, don't it? The early accolades erected the first structures of the upper royal city, but the later kings, Eumenes II and Attalus III, by their extensive building and rebuilding, were chiefly responsible for the city's great architectural and artistic reputation. After the fall of Rome, Pergamum was ruled by the Byzantines. You got any idea who the Byzantines are?
The Byzantines became the British.
The Byzantines were it's also British, but they're also part of Rome, divided into Western and Eastern Kingdom. The Eastern Kingdom pulled away from Rome. They were big in England, but it's also still the Eastern division of the Roman Empire. Then it passed into the Ottoman hands in the early 14th century. I mentioned several times that they saw Hellenistic practices, Hellenistic influences. You may have any idea what Hellenism is. I didn't either until I studied it. Hellenism is in practice primarily centered around polytheistic and animistic worship. We know what polytheism is. I think of it. What's polytheism?
Like many gods.
The many gods. What is animistic worship? I didn't have no idea. I looked it up.
You said animistic?
Animistic.
Animistic. Well, is that anything like, no, it's wrong. Prefix. I don't know.
It is the belief that natural objects, natural phenomena, and the universe itself has souls. That has a soul, and that has a soul, and this has a soul.
So I could hurt my book's feelings.
It hurts your books.
Goodness.
Yeah, so now, we think that's foolish, but this is what they had to deal with. Everything had a soul. That's what Hellenism was. It's both. It's polytheistic and animistic.
Preston, think about, though, why there were so many wars during that time. Because different religious ideas creates animosity.
Oh, yeah.
The Persians were constantly fighting with people over religious reasons. What do we have going on in the Middle East right now?
Yeah, big mess.
It's all based on religion. It ain't based on resources. It's all based on religion. That's all it is. They're strictly fighting over religion. And both of them's wrong.
Oh, yeah.
I know some people don't want to hear that, but both of them's wrong. Both their beliefs are wrong.
Part of that animistic idea goes into shamanism. You know what shamanism is? If you think about the Native Americans, they had shamans, and the bear had a soul, the wolf had a soul, the wind had a soul, everything. They believed in the great spirits of this, that, and the other. That's a more, I don't know if they talked about inanimate object, but they thought of other things having a soul, like a bear and a wolf and a lion and a tiger and whatever. So, to be honest with you, those animals are here today. They'll be, when they die, they'll just be here. They have no soul. We are different than them. We have a soul. I don't believe in polytheism. I don't believe in animistism. Devotee worship of the Greek gods. The Greeks had a lot of different ones. And remember, this city was started by the Greeks. They had the 12 Olympians, Zeus and Poseidon, Hera, Demeter, Aphrodite, Athena, Artemis, Apollo, Ares, Hephaestus, Hermes, and either Hestus or Dionysus. But they have different names for that one. Yeah, that could be it, Dionysus, yep. So the different gods of the 12 Olympians. And right now, what's going on right now? What's going on right now? The Olympics. Now, we think of it just swimming and shooting archeries and stuff, but it goes back to this right here. It was a worship of the Olympic gods. Nothing has changed but the time. Now, I don't think they're over there right now. I don't think they're bowing down to shrines of Zeus and whatever. I don't know. But many people worship the god of sports. Sports is a god. It can be. There's nothing wrong with playing a sport, but it can become a god.
I mean, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of professional athletes in our country who bring God into their, I don't know if probably a lot of people don't remember this, but there was one year that the United States went against Russia in hockey. It was ice hockey, I think it was. The Russians had never been, 1980. Yeah, it was in the 80s. The Russians had never been beat. And there were people here in the United States who were praying that America would beat the Russians just so that, they could see that we were the dominant nation, right? I'm just going to tell you, I just don't believe that God was interested in a hockey game. No. He was interested in every soul that was in that hockey game. But the game itself, and I'm not saying that God can't use those things sometimes to get messages out to people, right? God could take an athlete who was a Christian and him try to use that platform to spread Christianity. I'm not against that at all. Yeah, no. But to say that, God helped me score a touchdown or God helped me hit a golf ball in between two trees.
Lord, if you let me.
He's not
Do what? They did, we did. The American. But I don't believe it was because the Americans were praying, right?
Well, did they win the game?
They did. That's the first time we ever beat the Russians in hockey.
You did take off.
I'm with you. I don't think God cares anything, ball games, races, or anything. Don't pray that your team's gonna win.
Yeah, there's,
You know?
yeah, it's just,
The
it's,
best one will win. you
yeah,
know?
yeah, that's all just, but think about though how God's been brought into, like there's athletes over there right now who are praying that they'll win their event. And the only thing that's gonna win your event is if you're just a better athlete.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
That's right.
God is not involved in you winning a race or hitting a golf ball.
But they took it serious.
They did. I mean, they did take it very serious. There was rituals before they did their event. They, you know, yeah. And I'm sure that there are people still doing some of those forms of worship to their gods.
They also, they worship the 12 they worship divinities, the spirits of nature, underworld deities, the clonic gods. And what's a clonic god? A clonic god is those who deal with the underworld, the underrealm of Hades and Persephone. But the biggest problem was Hellenistic Jews, because a Jew is supposed to be completely separate. Hellenism is polytheism, and a Jew's supposed to be there's only one God. They blended. The problem with religion is blending. If we believe we have truth, and I do believe we have the truth, we have no business blending.
Right.
Blending that's compromise. Anytime you compromise, the biggest loser in compromise is the truth. And if you have the truth and you compromise into different types of worship, it always hurts the truth. So what's a Hellenistic Jew? It's a designation of Judaism in Greek-speaking world for those Jews who spoke Greek and adopted the Greek lifestyle. So they wanted to have the best of both worlds. They wanted to have the Judaistic past, but they also wanted to blend in with their present. Hellenism, whether centered in contemporary or ancient paganism, ancient paganism is not as prevalent today. I don't see temples of Zeus and, what did you say his name was? Dionysus? Or? Dionysus. You don't see any temples there. But you see temples to worship this God and that God. They don't call it worship, but that's all they think about. Whatever your heart's desire is, whatever your heart's biggest passion is your God. There's nothing wrong with having other passions, but as long as God is prevalent. There's nothing wrong with, like you said, playing sport. There's nothing wrong with going fishing. But whenever that becomes your God, it's contemporary paganism. We don't call it paganism because it sounds too harsh. Now it's your hobby, it's your passion, but it can become your God. Those are not as, and those worst ones are those that claim to be a church. The devil quit fighting against it and started fighting as it. Now the devil uses churches to spread its messages of do what you want to do. It doesn't matter what you do. Come and get saved and do what you want to do. That is paganism at its core.
Well, remember, he quit looking like a dragon and started looking like a lamb.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. I am out of time, but not out of notes. I want to mention one thing, and then we'll go on. Let me find where's that here. A note. Okay. In that city of Pergamum, and now this will lead up to the third seal in the spiritual part. In the city of Pergamum was the first ever, we had temples to Zeus and all these dead people, well, not even dead, they weren't even real people. Zeus has never existed. Zeus is a made-up figment of their imagination. But in this city was the very first temple to Caesar, who was a man. And they set up Caesar as a god. If you think about the third seal, they had a temple with a man at the center of worship. His name was the Pope. It's the same thing. So the letter to this city applies because they didn't call him Caesar, they called him Papa. The same thing. And what was happening to this city, that's why these letters have spiritual and literal meaning, because what was happening literally applied spiritually. And we can do that today. You can put a man in a supreme authority position. You can lift him up too much. Man has his place, but it never takes the place of God. He should never, I don't care who you are, I don't care what your name is, we should never be worshiping any man because he's just a man. Even Jesus, when he was in the flesh, says, don't bow to me, bow to God, you know. So I'm out of time. But so the very first worship of a man that was alive happened in this city, in the city of Pergamum. They had an actual temple dedicated to Caesar to worship his image. We'll see how the Lord leads if I go into the spiritual part next time. My main goal was to give you historical and geographical and information about what they were facing, so that when Brother Ken preaches the Revelation, it makes more sense. It's not just because the Revelation message sometimes can sound far-fetched or a fairy tale or just based on nothing, has no foundation. That message that Brother Ken preaches in Revelation has a foundation. The people who he was writing to understand because they were dealing with that physically as well as spiritually. So anything before I stop because of the time? If not, we'll get ready for service.